Hello, YouTube. This is Mr. Bakari, and today we are going to solve triangles using the law of cosines. So let's take a look. So what we've got here is the law of cosines, and it is written three different ways, and that's usually how you'll find it. But we only need one version of this law of cosines because we can rename any triangle so that the angle we know is labeled as A. So if we just look at this top one, we can rename the angle we're looking for as A, and then the two sides around that angle become B and C, and the side opposite that angle becomes A. So we can always plug into the same single formula. Okay? So I'll show you exactly what I mean here in a moment, but let's talk first. What do we use this for? Why can't we just use the law of sines? Well, we cannot use the law of sines with SAS or SSS triangles because there's just not enough information. So when you're given side angle side, that means you're given an angle between two sides, and you've got to use the law of cosines. So with an SSS triangle, it's the same thing. You're given three different sides, but no angles, so you can't use the law of sines. Okay, so that's where this formula comes in. So let's take a look. So we're asked to solve this triangle, okay? And it gives us angle C as 100.5 degrees. I'm going to put that in the bottom corner here. Call that C. And as you can see, we are given non-corresponding sides to C. So I'll just make this side A, and I'll make this side B. Okay, so we have triangle ABC, and in our formula we have ABC. So that looks good. But as you can see, side A is what is set up to be solved for in this formula. And we need side C. Okay? So this is what I'm talking about. All you have to do is say, well, if I'm given this angle and I want it to be A, I'm going to call this angle A. Okay? I can leave this as B, and then I'll just call this one C. And now my triangle and my missing part that I'm looking for corresponds with this version of the law of cosine. Okay? Then you only have to memorize one line. Okay? So that's the way I present it to my students, and so that's my suggestion. Now, we're looking for side A. A is isolated here, so I'm going to start off by writing A squared equals B squared. So I'm going to go to B, which is 2.6. And I'm just going to put parentheses around that and square. I'm going to write it just like I want to enter it in my calculator here. Plus C squared, which is 1.2 squared, minus 2, and then back to B, which is 2.6, times C, 1.2, times cosine of A, and A is 100.5 degrees. Okay? Make sure everything looks good. Now, we want A. We don't want A squared, so we are going to take the square root of both sides here. Okay? And that's how we're going to plug it into our calculator. All right, so let me pull up my calculator here. I'm using a TI Inspire. Okay, so I'm going to take the square root of 2.6 and square that. All right, and then I've got 1.2. Oops, back up here. We're going to add 1.2, square that. Looks good. Now we are going to subtract 2. All right, times 2.6 times 1.2. and then multiplied by cosine of 100.5. All right, double check that we entered that correctly. That's important. 2.6. Everything looks good. Once you're sure that it was all entered correctly, hit enter, and we've got 3.06. We'll round to the nearest hundredth place. So A equals 3.06. All right. Okay, so now we've got all three sides. Now we will go back to law of sines and we'll find one of these angles. Okay, so that's how it works. Now I'm just going to focus on law of cosines in this video, but after you use it one time, you always want to go back to law of sines. It's more efficient, a lot easier to work with. So you'll do that. Okay, so you only need to use it for that first step on a side angle side triangle. Okay, so let's look at the other scenario, which is the side, side, side triangle. Okay, we're given three sides. Now, when you're given three sides, it does not matter what you name the angles because there's nothing that is tied to an angle yet. So we can come up here and say, well, all right, what are we going to do? Well, one thing you want to keep in mind with the law of cosines with a side, side, side triangle specifically, we'll put a little asterisk here, okay? You always want to solve for the largest angle first, and this is to avoid an ambiguous situation. So, of course, your biggest angle is always going to be across from your biggest side. So we're going to look for this angle here. So we're going to call this A, since the cosine of A is in our formula. Okay? So let's write that down. Always solve for biggest angle first. Okay? That's important. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And so this is A, so I need to assign these. I'll just call this B. I'll call that C. Okay? Now, since we're looking for an angle, as you can see, our formula here is set up to solve for side A, not angle A. So what we need to do first is we need to manipulate this, move everything over, and isolate cosine of A. So on the left, I've got A squared. I'm going to move B squared over by subtracting it, move C squared over by subtracting it, and then divide negative 2BC, which is being multiplied here. And all of that is equal to cosine of A. Okay? So as you can see here, we are looking for an angle, so we're going to use the inverse cosine function. So to set this up, I'm going to write inverse cosine, and then we're going to put all of this in parentheses. So we have to plug in A, B, C, B, and C. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So side A across from A, 14.3. Square that. Subtract B across from B is 10.6. Square that. Subtract C across from C is 8.4. Square that. All over minus 2B, back to B is 10.6 times C. Okay? Now, I cannot stress this enough. This is a lot to plug in. You always want to make sure you wrote everything correctly. Double check your work before we put this in the calculator. Once you are sure that everything looks good, and I'm checking it as I speak, everything looks good. Now we'll go to our calculator. Okay? So we are going to go inverse cosine. Okay? We've got to use the inverse function here. We're looking for an angle. Okay? And up top, I've got 14.3 squared minus 10.6 squared minus 8.4 squared. Go down to the denominator here. We've got negative 2 times b, which is 10.6. And lastly, times c, which is 8.4. All right. Look over your work in your calculator. Does everything look good? Looks like we are good. Go ahead and hit enter. And rounding to the nearest hundredth, we've got angle A is equal to 96.96 degrees. Okay, so now we've got our angle here, and we will from there use the law of sines to solve the rest of the triangle, because now we have enough information to apply the law of sines. Okay, and so that's how we apply the law of cosines. Remember, with a side, you always want to solve for the biggest angle first. Okay, that's to keep you out of trouble. And you'll be good to go. So I hope this helps you out, and I'll see you in the next video.